live right now.
Everybody. And welcome to the Court of Common Pleas Candidate Forum, sponsored by VIP. The Voting is Power Pittsburgh Regional Coalition. Let's give a hand to all of our partners. Over the past year or so, various organizations have come together under the VIP banner. They include One Hood, A. Philip Randolph Institute, Abolitionist Law Center, Alliance for Police Accountability, APA, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, Lambda Chapter of Pittsburgh, Amache Pittsburgh, Association of Nigerians in Pittsburgh, the Black Political Empowerment Project, BPAP, Black Voters Matter, Black Women's Policy Center, Carnegie Mellon University, Central Baptist Church, East Liberty Presbyterian Church, Everybody Votes, Fighting Back, Freedom Unlimited, County Star Incorporated, Pittsburgh, Hill District Consensus Group, John Lewis, Transformation or Transformative Justice, Just Harvest, League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh, NAACP, Pittsburgh Branch, National Council of Jewish Women, Pittsburgh. New Voices for Reproductive Justice, PACE, Pittsburgh. Peace is Possible Coalition, Pittsburgh Higher Ground Ministries, Wake Up the Vote, Urban League of Greater Pittsburgh, the Links, St. James AME Church, South Pittsburgh Coalition for Peace, Sisters Saving Ourselves Now, HUMP, Voter Empowerment Education and Enrichment Movement, VEAM, Voter Engagement Empowerment Enrichment Movement. Vote Finders, Wake Up the Vote, West End Power, YWCA of Greater Pittsburgh, and Help us start. Let's give them all a big hand if we will. Why are you here? You're here because you believe in the BPAP mission, which is all people's mission in this room, is that we vote when? In each and every election. Can we say it again? We vote in each and every election. Not just the presidential election, but every local election, every national election, whatever election, you make your voice heard. If anyone ever wondered, do elections matter? The November 5th election of 2024 is going to make that absolutely clear for everyone in this room. Regardless of what side of the politics you are on, it is clear that elections matter. And the individuals in these seats matter. Be it those for city council, county council, or the common pleas for Allegheny County, or the common pleas for Allegheny County, the school board. Whatever seat in the magistrates. Every local seat affects everyone in this room at some point, as well, obviously, as does the national policies. So tonight, we want to hear from you, the candidates, and the public will be hearing your answers. Speak with honesty, integrity, and with a commitment to what it is for which you stand, and for what this nation stands for. We're going to bring up right now the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh, with whom BPAP works extremely closely, and we love the League. And let's give a hand to his co-president, Ruth Quint.
Thanks, Tim. A little shorter than Tim. Okay. I'm Ruth Quint of the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh. As Tim said, we work closely with BPAP and VIP on a number of projects trying to inform voters and get out to vote. Now, I drove here today past an awful lot of yard signs with judges' names on them. And it did not help me choose at all. Okay. When people go to vote for judges, they are confused and they have a hard time finding information. And here at the League of Women Voters and the VIP, we're committed to providing that information to voters to help them make an informed choice. And I feel like informed voters are people who will actually go to the polls. Nobody likes to go there and feel like it's a pop quiz and they don't know what they're doing. Now, we have 22 candidates out here for 8 seats, and all of these candidates showed up, and they're all committed to letting the voters know about themselves, know about their qualifications, and helping them make an informed and positive decision for themselves. And I want to thank them all for that. And not only are they here tonight, but only in things that the League is involved in, they've also replied 2 other ways already. They've provided little selfie videos answering 2 questions that are on our website. And they've answered Vote 411, which is online and in the Voters Guide that you can find out on the print Voters Guide. And that's only the stuff that the League is working on. There's also WESA and Trib Live and everybody else who's on it. So on our little scorecard that you have here, we have listed some of these resources at the bottom. Other places where you can go and find information about these candidates. Now, they asked me to answer the question, what does a judge of the Court of Common Pleas do? And believe it or not, that's a question that I get a lot as a community leader. People say, what do they even do? What do they even do? Do we know? Well, they do a lot of things. There are 4 divisions in the Court of Common Pleas. One is criminal, and that's what most people think of. They think of law and order, chung-chung, you're in the court, there's a jury. That's a very small part of what the Court of Common Pleas does. But the criminal division does handle crimes like assault and theft. They handle probation. And there's also a lot of problem-solving courts in the criminal division, including mental health court and drug court that seek to address the root causes of some of these crimes. Then there's the family division, divorce, custody, child support, things that can affect any one of us in the course of our lives. Things that have affected me, juvenile delinquency and other things. Civil, what does the civil court do? They resolve contract disputes, workplace safety. They do housing, real estate, and professional liability claims. And then there's the oddly named Orphans Court. Orphans Court handles adoptions, but also inheritance and state law, and things like involuntary commitment or applying for guardianship for a disabled adult. So these are things, a lot of people think, what do I care about the courts? I'm not going to commit a crime. You don't have to commit a crime to need the courts. These people are running to be the referees for your life. Anytime there's a dispute, who owns it? Who did the right thing? Who fulfilled their contract? These people are the ones who answer. Now, I wanted to tell you, my husband was going through the candidate video gallery looking at those little selfie videos, filling out his mail-in ballot. And every single one of these people submitted a video. And he said to me, it is so reassuring to see that there are so many qualified and competent and thoughtful people running for these positions. And I can tell you that that is not my husband's usual reaction to a political race. So I wanted to thank all of you for your commitment to transparency, to introducing yourselves to the voters, and to helping them make a fair decision. Thank you.
At the bottom of your program, please note this and share it with others when you get home tonight in the morning. Rico Martelli was with us at most of our events. Martello, sorry. I should know this one now. We will be on tonight, youtube.com/18rico, RICCO. So you can watch yourselves tonight. You can share with others to see what has been said tonight. Well, let's give a welcome to our co-moderators. We've been formally the executive director and founder of Voter Empowerment Education and Enrichment project called VEAM. And Rachel Warren, with whom I've worked very frequently with the youth forums at the schools lately. She is the senior director of Social Impact, the National Council of Jewish Women, Pittsburgh. Let's give them both a warm welcome to the church.
I just wanted to grab the microphone. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
All right, and hello. I am very excited to be helping to moderate this forum tonight with Erin. Bryn, I am so sorry. Did I do that? I know it's going to be Bryn. And we are really thrilled not only that everyone's here, but that we have all 22 candidates with us tonight. So thank you to the candidates for coming and joining us. That is a lot of candidates. And so in order to ensure a smooth, inclusive, and timely forum, we've broken the candidates into 4 groups. All candidates will be asked the same questions, and groupings were determined through a random draw earlier tonight. As each group comes up on stage, we ask that you please hold your applause until all candidates have given their introduction and opening remarks, and that we ask that you please remain silent until the end of each round. That will help us to make sure that all the candidates have their time to respond and that you all get home in a timely fashion. Candidates will have 90 seconds to introduce themselves and 90 seconds to answer each of our questions. Our friends from the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh will be keeping time, so thank you to them. And with that, let's have our first Group A join us on the stage. So, and I'm going to mess up your names too, and I'm really sorry, I tried. So, Elizabeth Hughes, Craig Stevens, Matt Rudecki, Lauren Luigi, Carmen Robinson, and Sarah Terry in that order, please. You can remain standing for a minute. Wait for questions. Okay, great. Then we could, if each candidate would please take a couple seconds here, 90 seconds tops, to introduce yourselves. We'll start with Elizabeth Hughes, please. I'm sorry. Could you please introduce yourselves and give your opening remarks with 90 seconds?
Thank you. Good evening.
They can sit. Yeah.
Test.
Good evening, I'm Elizabeth Hughes. Thank you for having us this evening. I've practiced over 20 years in all divisions of the Court of Common Pleas. You heard earlier those divisions, practice in family, civil, criminal, and orphans court division. And half of that time, 10 of those years, were spent in family division. And that's important because most new judges begin their time in family division. And that is where I would begin if I was a judge, and that's important because people deserve to have judges with experience and who can hit the ground running. And so I've done everything from custody to support and more complex family law matters, along with juvenile dependency and delinquency matters. And I've also handled as an assistant county solicitor. I've also handled thousands of involuntary commitment hearings and guardianships. I've also was mental health caseworker before I became a lawyer, so I have a mental health background as well. I'm currently an in-house counsel and for 3 hospitals. One of those is a pediatric specialty hospital and dedicated to children and families. So thank you for your time this evening. I'm last on the ballot, and I hope that you understand that I will make the people of Allegheny County first as judge of Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. Thank you.
I'll also just ask that everyone please state your name before you give your opening remarks, and everyone can just give me one.
And could everybody just sit, always sit? Will you, all right, okay. Okay. All right, we have succeeded, but, okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Luigi. I am running for the Court of Common Pleas, and I am a public defender here in Pittsburgh. So that means that I represent individuals who are incarcerated or who do not afford an attorney. I've spent thousands of hours in the courtroom representing thousands of clients throughout my time here in Allegheny County, making sure that the government does their job and their constitutional rights are protected at every stage of the trial. I've done everything from low-level offenses to most major crimes. So if a crime has been committed in Allegheny County, I represent someone through that matter. And I always tell people, if your loved ones are going through a case, you want to make sure that you have someone that cares about them, that is guiding them through that process. Additionally, I am the immigration advocate for our office. I am the lead attorney. I founded that group. I realized of how vital it is and important with the increasing immigration population here in Allegheny County. All our students that are being impacted, that are not able to attend class, that they're getting properly advised of their rights when they come into court, and so that they can keep on their pathway to citizenship as students, anyone alike. And I am running because through my advocacy, I've been in public interest work for over a decade now. I realize of how tired already I was of how the roadblocks that we have, especially for the young Black and brown community. I didn't want to become complacent or jaded in the system. I wanted to really take the reins and make sure that we have representation in the courtroom for the people who are judging. And I've actually been in the communities. I grew up in those communities, and I want to make sure that folks who are most often in the courtroom have that representation. Thank you.
Please hold your applause until you're completed with introductions.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Robinson, and I'd like to say that I believe I have the most diverse experience in this race. This is my second career. My first career.
Don't walk around.
Go on.
You're going to stand up in front of your chair. Don't walk around. You're going to gather.
I was going to go that down. Can I start over?
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Carmen Robinson. And I'd like to say that I have the most diverse experience in this race. This is my second career. My first career was as a Pittsburgh police officer. I spent 15 years as a police officer, and I obtained the rank of sergeant. And I went to law school during the day while being a sergeant at night in Zone 5. I served every zone in the city of Pittsburgh. Currently, I'm a criminal defense attorney. But I was not just a defense attorney. I started out working at the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, clerking for the Honorable Justice Baer, and then I clerked for the Honorable Dwayne Woodruff and the Honorable Kim Park while she was president judge. I have tried some of the most serious cases. I have tried death penalty cases as well as first-degree homicide cases. I'm going to say experience matters. Diverse experience is even better. I want to tell you that I also am an adjunct professor at Duquesne University, where I run a reentry program. And that reentry program, we do pardons, expungements, and sealings. And when you think pardons, you're probably thinking of we're getting people out of jail. No, we pardon records. These are people that have defendants who have gotten out of jail or gotten out of prison, or maybe they didn't go to prison, but there is a barrier to them being able to get a job or housing or a driver's license.
Thank you very much. I'll also ask, please, if you want to stand, you can ask me to stand in front of your chair, just to kind of keep moving. Thanks. You can choose.
Okay. Good evening, I'm Matt Rutzke. Thank you for hosting us all today in this beautiful house of worship. I am currently the district judge for the Fountain Chapel area. I am in my fourth year on the bench now. Prior to that, I served as mayor of Sharpsburg for 4 years, also on council In between all of that, I practiced law for 8 years at a small private firm, school law, municipal law, some estate planning, estate administration, and some limited criminal work. I'm guided by the principles of restorative, fair, and accessible justice. So I use social workers in the courtroom to help connect people to resources, help connect people to services. So their cases stop at my court to maintain their dignity, get back on their feet, stay on their feet. Use of cash bail. I do not use cash bail. I do not want to perpetuate a two-tier justice system. If someone cannot afford to pay, they should not get stuck in jail. If someone can pay and get released, it doesn't make us necessarily any safer. Third prong, accessibility. When I took the bench, I became the second judge in the county out of 46 magistrates to introduce the night court option. I did that for all of my school cases. We also reserve time for working with folks and families that come in to do landlord-tenant court, to do traffic court, so that they don't have to take off a day of work and lose a day's earnings when they're trying to save their housing. I also use therapy dogs that evening. We have 2 dogs that come in from animal friends to help reduce anxiety and stress in the waiting room so we get better results in the courtroom. So the line for me is about impact. I would like to take the meaningful work I've done locally and scale it up to the rest of Allegheny County. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Craig Stevens, and I am a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas in Allegheny County. I currently serve as a magisterial district judge in the Braintree, Scott Township area of the county. I am in my 10th year as a magisterial district judge. I've presided over 50,000 cases in my 10 years, serving over 100 communities throughout Allegheny County, not just in my district, but I volunteer to cover different magisterial district courts throughout the county, including Pittsburgh Municipal Court. Prior to becoming a district judge, I served as an attorney for Allegheny County for nearly 20 years. I did a lot of my work in the family division, dealing with child abuse and child neglect. I also did work in the mental health unit for the Allegheny County Law Department. Did some civil work as well, civil litigation and tax appeal work. I was also the attorney for the Allegheny County Ethics Commission for several years. I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association. In my courtroom, I do use diversion programs and restorative justice for mental health, drug and alcohol, and community service. I think I can make a positive impact at the Court of Common Pleas based on my experience, my temperament, and my integrity. Thank you for your time. I think I'm over my time.
Thank you guys for having us tonight. My name is Sarah Terry. I was raised in a working class union family, and I am a first-generation lawyer. In the 13 years that I've been practicing law, I have advocated for individuals suffering from mental health issues and addiction-related issues. And this has really been a personal endeavor for me because I've had close friends and family members go through these same struggles. I've also served as a judicial law clerk for the past 12 years in the family division. I've observed over 1,000 cases and written hundreds of opinions on divorce, custody, and juvenile court cases. I know what happens when kids don't get the services they need in the juvenile system because we don't have a trauma-informed court. And so I'm running for judge because I want to ensure justice and fairness for everybody. I want to make sure people have access to treatment, specifically juveniles, because if we don't get things right for them, then we're going to see them in the system over and over again. And most importantly, I'm running for judge because I want to be the change that we need in the Court of Common Pleas.
Thank you so much, Shelby.
Hello, everybody. All right, are we ready for this? Are we ready to hear from our candidates? Okay, let's turn it up, but also remember the rules about staying silent while we're, so just turn it up internally, okay? All right, let's go. So we are going to go in reverse order, back down the chain and see how this goes, all right? First question, Sarah Terry. What core personal values would guide your work as a judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, and how have those values been demonstrated in your personal and professional life?
That's a great question. So I grew up during the heart of the heroin epidemic, and I really had a front row seat to the devastation that drugs and alcohol caused in my community. And I watched it destroy so many families and people's lives. And that's something that really stuck with me, and particularly now in my professional career, I really do encourage my clients to seek out personalized treatment options, and I've had a lot of really great success stories, and so that's really important to me that I continue to do that if I were elected judge. And it also speaks to redemption and how important that is in our court system, because I've had several close friends in my personal life who have achieved long-term recovery and now have pardons and gone on to lead successful lives. And those are lessons that I would take with me if I were elected to the bench.
Thank you. Craig Stevens. Same question, I apologize. Y'all are all answering the same question. So I will say it again. What core personal values would guide your work as a judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas? And how have those values been demonstrated in your personal and professional life?
Well, my core values is, based on my upbringing, my honesty, my integrity, my even temperament, my fairness. In fact, my nickname is Even Stevens, so I use that in my courtroom. Everybody that comes into my courtroom is treated with dignity and respect, whether you're an attorney, you're a witness, you're a victim, you don't have an attorney, you're pro se. Everyone's given an opportunity to present their case and get an opportunity to speak and present their evidence. So that's how I treat every case, and that carries into my personal life too, because I do a lot of work in my community. I serve on some nonprofit boards and organizations. I help on weekends distribute food and clothing to the homeless and provide legal guidance to people that are less fortunate than me, and marginalized people of our society. I believe I've also served my community as a township commissioner for 20 years. So I bring all those values every day to the bench, and I believe with my experience and my integrity and my temperament, I'll have a positive impact at the Court of Common Pleas, and I will continue to apply those values in every day when I'm on the bench and in my personal life.
Thank you. Mr. Redskins.
I told a story a few weeks ago that I never told before on the trail, and I'm a public servant at heart, and what does a public servant mean to me? And a public servant means that we are shepherds. We tend the flock should tend to us. And that means mercy and compassion. And I live that every day in my courtroom. I have some graffiti art in my courtroom that says Salus Populi Suprema Lex. And that says it means the welfare of the people is the highest law. It's the motto of the Duquesne Klein School of Law, which is my alma mater for law school. So every day that I'm on the bench, I'm trying to find ways to help people, to deliver services to people who have mental health needs, or people who suffer from substance use disorder. We need to find ways to prevent the people who are most at risk of falling through the cracks from not falling through those cracks. And then there's a small percentage of people who need to be held accountable in the system. And it's a very fine line, it's a nuanced line. I've handled about 15,000 cases in over 3 years. I've discovered where that line is, and when to deliver mercy and compassion, and when we need to hold people accountable.
Thank you. Carmen Robinson.
I would say being open-minded and not having preconceived or falling for preconceived notions. I think that will carry the day, especially for a judge. Also, being open-minded has been helpful in just about everything that I've ever done. Being able to you're not a clean slate, but what you do is you are patient and you're willing to hear all of the information. That has served me well from being a police officer to being a law clerk, as well as being a defense attorney. It's about, and I believe that having an open mind will cause you to be a bit more patient, and that helps with, usually when a judge has a bad disposition, I found it's because they jump to conclusions and they think that they have the full story before all the evidence has come in. So I want to say having that open mind, not falling for preconceived notions, and being patient.
Thank you. Margie.
Yes, for me, it was a judicial philosophy that really was sunk with me for my life is empathy, and just how I move through the world of recognizing where other people are coming from when they interact with me. Whether it's when I was a rugby coach, teaching young college kids, or it's me babysitting my 5 nephews, or me even sitting in a courtroom or in the Allegheny County Jail with my client. To me, just having compassion for that individual and truly meeting that person where they're at in their life. Sometimes I'm going to the jail, it's a really hot day, I'm walking in there, I may have some personal stuff going on, the client may have personal stuff going on, but really taking the time to take a step back, and in those moments, it doesn't matter what your education is, it doesn't matter what your experience is, this is a human person that you're interacting with, that you're seeing, that you're meeting for the first time, or even when I'm in the courtroom arguing with opposing counsel, they have their own stuff going on that day, and even the judge has their own matters that they have in their personal life. So for me, it's always taking a step back, looking at the full context of the picture, making sure that I'm listening, active listening, asking the right questions, hearing those responses that we can move forward together and figure out how we're going to get a resolution. I do that in my everyday life, and that's what I will do on the bench.
Thank you. Elizabeth Hughes.
Thank you. I think I was lucky enough to have parents who always listened to me, no matter how young I was. They always wanted to know what I thought, and always thought that what I had to say was important. And I think that is a very important quality for a judge to have, to listen, and not to be the most important person in the room because you're not your servant leader. And that is something I learned from my mentors, Judge Kimberly Clark. And when I heard her talk about servant leadership, that was something that spoke to me, that you are, the people that you serve. You're a leader, but you are there to be there for them, and they are, the public is who you are serving. And the knowledge that you have is for the benefit of others. And you listen so that you can make the decisions that benefit those individuals who need the help and guidance that you are there to give. So when you don't listen, you end up, affecting people's lives, sometimes in a negative way. So you have to be able to listen to do the job that you need. So I think listening is key. And that's the most important quality that I think I've brought in. I appreciate my parents for giving that to me.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for answering that first question so thoughtfully. And it was wonderful to hear a little bit more about you and your personal values. So now our next and final question, because we have a lot of folks to get through tonight. Okay, put on your listening ears. Disparities in incarceration rates for Black men, overrepresentation of Black youth in the juvenile justice system, disproportionate involvement of Black families in the child welfare system are well documented around the country and right here in Allegheny County. Given this, how do you see your role as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in addressing and actively reducing these racial disparities within the justice system? Elizabeth Hughes, you're first. 90 seconds? Yeah.
Could talk about that all day. I think one of the things is that you have to be very cognizant as to what patterns are occurring in your courtroom, and when you see patterns that are reoccurring over and over again, you see the same people being brought forth before you, you need to ask the right questions, and you need to find out why this is happening. So if you see something going on, particularly if you're working in juvenile division, and you go to juvenile court, you see, the same schools that are bringing the same kids in, or you see the same situation coming in where it's the same thing going on over and over again, you need to stop and ask the questions, right? So we need to be very keyed into when we recognize bias. We need to be keyed in if we see it in ourselves. We need to be very aware of when it's going on in our courtrooms, and also when it's being brought to us and it's occurring before it gets to us. So asking those questions and seeing how this kid got here, this person ended up here, and you know, what is going on in the systems before people even reach the courtroom is very important. You know, it's not something that just happens in front of you. So you've got to be cognizant of what's going on in front of us and what we're doing as judges, and checking ourselves of what happens on the way and how the person got in front of us so that we can
Please, I'm sorry. Thank you. Lori, go ahead.
Yes, I see this every day in Atlanta where I disproportionately represent young black and brown men. A lot of times I even refer to my clients as kids because when you have trauma at such a young age, it really does stop development and it stops the growth of someone's progress and how they move through the world. And this is also very personal to me because where I grew up 10 minutes from a state prison. My mom was incarcerated before I was born, and the habits that she picked up to that day still followed me and my sister, even though that was maybe 15 to 20 years after her incarceration. So to me, every day that I am moving through my job, I think of my job as harm mitigation. How am I going to meet my client where they're at? How am I going to listen to them? How am I going to relay that to the prosecutor? How am I going to relay that to the judge? And to me, that shows up in the courtroom of making sure that we're having, exactly like Ms. Hughes said, 5 trainings. Even myself, I can check when I'm having a certain reaction, when I'm getting riled up, even though I'm from a marginalized community, I myself have moments where I find myself saying, oh wait, let me check, why am I treating this person differently? Again, it's assessing where I'm coming from, and saying, how can I work with this individual appearing before me to make sure that we're addressing the points that got to me here. No one wakes up one day saying, hey, I'm going to commit a crime. No one wakes up one day saying, hey, I'm not going to pay my rent, and it leads them to court. So addressing those underlying factors to make sure that all parties have the opportunity to present their side, to really work on not repeating the cycle and breaking the cycles that lead us to the legal system. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen.
It really is true that if there's anything negative to give out, or anything negative, like a jail sentence or something like when I was in family division, you see juveniles coming in year brown and black males, or you see terminating parental rights, they happen to be black families. It really is true. And when you're a judge, you're a human being, and you live in existence, and being black or brown or just any marginalized group, you know, poor people are marginalized. You have a set of experiences and you know what to look for. And a judge has a heck of a lot of discretion. Just like when I was a police officer, I had a heck of a lot of discretion. I could ruin somebody's day if I wanted to. And I started very young. I was under 21 when I first became a police officer. So you recognize your power, and you recognize your use of your discretion, and you recognize your responsibility, because that's important. And if you can find a way to minimize the harm that may occur to a family or to a young black or brown male or someone poor, then you do it, especially if on balance it's the right thing to do. We're all people, and so we have to draw from our experiences. And of course, a candidate with a lot of diverse experience is going to matter. But all of us, you don't have to have been black to understand. Thank you. Matt.
Thank you. So, as Trixie's white guy, I was born with a lot of privilege, and we all have implicit biases, and I have to check myself every day. And I mentioned about cash bond. We know that these disparities exist, and we know that it typically starts at the arraignment process. And MDJs arraign 99.9% of people who are arrested in Allegheny County. But common police judges do set bond. They also sentence people. And when we are arraigning individuals, we get something called a pretrial assessment. And pretrial assessment is basically a number of factors. It's an algorithm, but we know that those numbers aren't perfect. And we know that those numbers aren't perfect because they're based off of arrests. And because of redlining, we know that arrests occur more frequently in certain communities than other communities. So sometimes for a black defendant, it might recommend no release. But for a white defendant with the same fact pattern, it might recommend a release. And having a conversation with the defendant is important because you get to learn about that defendant. And it takes away the algorithm and it makes it more human. And as was pointed out, we have discretion. So I recently participated in a Harvard study over the last 2 years, 370 arraignments. I found that although I released more defendants in Allegheny County as compared to the average of my colleagues, my defendants appeared at higher rates and they reoffended at lesser rates. And I think that goes to show that if you take time with defendants, speak with them, believe in them, release them on non-monetary conditions, we can still get better outcomes.
Just to kind of follow what Matt was saying, as my colleague and myself as a magistrate district judge, I've done thousands of arraignments over the past 10 years. And we do have a pretrial assessment tool as a guide to determine setting the bail for somebody. And it's based on the algorithm, prior arrest, prior failure to appears, employment, where do they live. So we consider those factors. But we have the opportunity to talk to the individuals one-on-one because they're arraigned right in front of us when they come in from the other side of the holding area. And oftentimes, and I know that I have really refrained from using any cash bail. Cash bail that I use is a nominal bail, maybe $1. If somebody is being detained on a probation or parole detainer, which as the magistrate judge, I have no control over. We also have other tools at our discretion, such as mental report person of pretrial services for mental health and drug and alcohol treatment, and we also have other programs where they can be released into an inpatient program for drug and alcohol or mental health. I do work with justice-related services on the mental health side of things, and I oftentimes give credit for time served in lieu of incarceration or fines and costs. So it's a case-by-case determination, but that's how I approach it. Thank you.
Much needed here in Allegheny County. And judges do play a part in that and can play a part in that. One of the most, I think, prolific issues that we have right now is with probation detainers. 40% of probationers are Black men. But Black men are incarcerated at a much higher rate than white men. And so judges really have to consider that, they have to understand that, and they have to take steps to change that. Part of that looks like knowing who's on your docket, knowing who's incarcerated, and having them appear before you in a timely fashion. That's really important. I've had clients sit in jail for 5 or 6 months for technical violations, like not reporting or not giving their probation officer a new phone number or a new address. And so I think criminal justice reform is just so important, and Court of Common Pleas judges have the ability to make changes in the next few years.
All right, thank you so much. Our next group of candidates are in alphabetical order this time. Julie Capone, Anthony DeLuca, Michelle Santacola, Heather Schmidt-Bresnahan, Meg Sullivan, and Hillary Wood, please. Yeah. All right, so thank you all, and we'll start with introductions with Julie Capone, please. You have 90 seconds. But you can remain seated or you can stand. If you're going to stand, please stay in front of your chair. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julie Capone. Thank you for having us tonight. For the last 24 years, I've been a trial attorney. I've been in public service, and those 24 years I've dedicated to helping people. The last 21 of those years, I've specifically dedicated to helping senior citizens. I got my start at a young age working in a nursing home as an aide to nurses aides in an Alzheimer's unit. From that point on, I wanted to continue that type of helping seniors, and I went to Pitt Law School and was in the elder and elderly me. I was highly recommended by the Bar Association. I also, when I went to pay in-home visits with those people that were seniors, I continued that on at the district attorney's office so that people didn't feel re-traumatized coming to the courthouse. Thank you very much again.
Hi, my name is Anthony DeLuca. Of course, I'm a candidate for Judge of Court of Common Pleas. And I'm going to get a couple of my endorsements out of the way because I always forget to do that. I am proud to be highly recommended by the Bar Association. I'm endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, endorsed by the Allegheny County Fayette Labor Council, numerous unions and other organizations. I'm going to tell you, obviously we don't have much time to talk right here, so I'm going to tell you a couple of things. Number one, I have practiced in every division of the Court of Common Pleas. They reference the orphans court, and that's the odd one. I've actually tried cases in the orphans court. I've tried in juvenile, in the family courts, criminal courts. I've been a criminal defense attorney for 20 years, and I've done cases in the civil courts as well. I'm going to tell you the two main things about me that I want you to remember. Number one, I have a passion for helping those with mental health challenges in the criminal justice system. I was part of a small group that developed mental health work in Allegheny County, and I've continued that work for the last 20 plus years. I want to get on the bench to improve those courts and to continue that work because we all know there's many mental health and substance abuse issues in the criminal justice system. The second thing I'm going to tell you about is I am actually a union labor lawyer. Okay, I represent working families in a wide variety of industries, public and private, in all fields that you can imagine. And I will tell you something, there are 43 positions on the Court of Common Pleas in Allegheny County. And
thank you.
Okay, thank you. And there's not one judge, so thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Michelle Santacola. I am one of the candidates for Court of Common Pleas. Early on in the race, a gentleman said to me, "Aren't you a little old to be doing this?" And I was a little insulted at first, but then I reminded him that with age comes experience. I am the only candidate who has been a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and a judge. I started my career as a deputy attorney general. For 10 years, I prosecuted cases over 23 counties in western Pennsylvania. I had jury trials, bench trials, grand jury cases. Then I became a defense attorney. That experience really shaped how I looked at cases and really opened my eyes to what brings people into the criminal justice system. I became a hearing examiner for the Liquor Control Board. I wrote the opinion that changed the law in Pennsylvania, 182 pages, allowing convenience stores to sell alcohol, bringing that convenience to Pennsylvania, bringing us out of the dark ages. And I was on the Board of Supervisors in Boone Township, so I know municipal law. And then for the last 5 years, I've been a magisterial district judge in my area. I'm highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association. I'm on the Supreme Court's Criminal Rules Committee. They placed me on that committee and recently named me vice chair, so that tells what their opinion of my work is. I'm also endorsed by the Allegheny County Allegheny Fayette Labor Council. That tells you their opinion of me, but the most important thing is the voters. So I ask for your support. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Heather Smith-Bresnan. I'm also a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas. I'm born and raised in Beaumont. I bring over 30 years of legal experience. First as a full-time staff person for the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office while I attended college and law school at night, and then that's where I actually fell in love with the law. And then after law school, I became a family law attorney because I wanted to work with families. And in family law, you're dealing with people during the toughest times of their lives because it's emotional and it's raw. I was like, wow, that was really quick. Sorry. So you're dealing with people during the toughest times of their lives. And I think that what I can bring to the bench is that I've dedicated my life dealing with people in their toughest times of their lives. And that's what I want to do. And I know that I would be most likely appointed to the family court, and I can bring great help to the people of Allegheny County. I am endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, endorsed by the Building Trade, endorsed by the Allegheny Fayette Labor Council, and many other unions across our city and county. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Sullivan. I am from Mount Lebanon, though I grew up in the North Hills. I've been an attorney for 25 years. Currently, I work as a criminal defense attorney. I also do a little bit of family law, mostly in the area of protection from abuse. The reason why I work in that area is because most of my career I was a domestic violence prosecutor. I worked in the courtroom, handling those cases day in and day out on a daily basis with our domestic violence victims for all those years. And that is a big reason why I'm running for the Court of Common Pleas. All those days I walked out with many victims who felt like they weren't listened to, that their issues weren't understood, and on the worst days they felt like they were a second-class case. We can't have victims of domestic violence being treated as a second-class case anywhere, let alone the Court of Common Pleas. Now, as a criminal defense attorney, a lot of my clients feel the same way as those victims do. They feel like they're left behind, they feel like they are a name and number on a file, rush through the system just to get to the next case, to get to the end of the docket. We cannot have that. We need judges who listen, who have stood next to people and fought for people, so they understand what people are going through. We also need judges who are willing to work outside the courtroom to make the system work better. I was a supervisor of the domestic violence unit as well as the specialty court attorneys in the DA's office, and I'm looking forward to improving our system.
Hi everybody, I am Hillary Wheatley, and I too am a candidate for Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association, and since January of 22, I've served as the elected magisterial district judge for Mount Lebanon and Dormont. Before taking the bench, I spent 21 years as a civil litigator, and what that means is I represented people in personal injury and real estate disputes and professional liability claims, things that are really important but don't get a lot of attention during the election cycle. It is really important that as we consider the judges we elect this year, that we ensure we have subject matter experienced litigators ready to take the bench in the civil division, because God forbid you are ever the victim of a catastrophic auto collision or a doctor who makes a mistake. You want qualified and experienced judges sitting on that bench. And as a person, I have used the court system and needed the assistance of judges in the family division. And so I know how important it is that judges care about the people that come before them and understand that we are all more than our worst mistake or shameful secret. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we will kick off our first question with Hillary. Yes.
Yes, that's me.
It is, okay. It's too early to do this. All right. So, for all of you though, values would guide your work as a judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, and how have those values been demonstrated in your personal and professional life?
Okay. My father spent my entire childhood as a commissioned salesperson. And what he taught me through my childhood is that we are all, our word matters more than anything. And if you lose the trust of people because you break your word, you have nothing left. And so I have taken that lesson from my father in my professional life, representing people in the civil division, and as I preside from the bench as well. Keeping our word and being respectful and honest is and as the oldest daughter, I have always been a strict rule follower. And what that means as a judge is that even when I don't like it, I adhere to and enforce the rule of law. I've done that for the last 3 years and several months. I've served as judge in the magisterial district courts, and I would take that rule following with me to the Court of Common Pleas.
So I was raised to working class parents who had to scratch and claw for, to pay every bill, to get every dollar they could. And while I recognize the privilege I have as a white cis male, I had to work my way up through things because of that. And my parents weren't just raising me; they were raising a special needs daughter. My sister began having epileptic seizures when she was just 6 months old. So not only did I watch my parents scratch and claw to pay the bills, I wasn't scratch and claw to make sure my sister had what she needed so that she could be the best version of herself as she moved through life. So those are the ideals that I was instilled with as a kid and that I've brought to my adult life. As a lawyer, standing up for victims, standing up for folks who've been accused in the criminal system, that's the fighting spirit. But the commonality in my career has been empowerment, trying to lift up people so that they can be the best version of themselves when they leave the courtroom, when I'm done representing them. And that's what I bring. It's integrity. I wouldn't last 20 years as a domestic violence prosecutor if I didn't have patience and compassion for what people have gone through. I care deeply about what people are going through and what our courts can and are not doing for them. So I hope to help make that better.
So I think with me, core values would be honesty, empathy, and kindness. And I think that I bring that, and I've done that all through my life. So in my family or in my circle of friends, everyone knows that if they need something, or if they need to talk to you about something, or if they're in trouble, I'm the one that they would go to talk to, because I do bring that. And I'm also somebody who, I'm not a gossip to them. But I think that I brought that in my 23 plus years in family law, because you are dealing with people during the roughest times of their life. And you need to be able to listen to those people. And sometimes that's all it takes is to listen. And I think that that's qualities that you bring over as a judge, because sometimes just in a conciliation or so forth, if you listen to the people, they feel that they've been heard and that they've been respected. And that's what I would bring to the court.
Michelle?
I would say two values, service and compassion. I sit on the board of our local food bank, and you can find me there every Sunday morning, giving out food or delivering food to folks in our neighborhood. I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. When I assign community service, I always tell people, you'll see me there. And I also started the backpack program in our area. We meet every Thursday and we pack backpacks for food insecure children with non-perishables and fresh fruit, because we found some of them are not eating over the weekend. So instead of wondering what to do, we roll up our sleeves and solve the problem. I volunteer at our local after-school program tutoring at-risk children. I love service, and public service, being a judge, is part of that. It also helps me on the bench, because when I see someone come in and I see that they are struggling with housing, I can hook them up with the resources and say, you're having trouble paying your bills. Or I've even had people for retail theft who are stealing food from Giant Eagle. I live in that community. I work and I serve people in the community. So I say, here are these resources. I'm in the process of adopting a foster child who was at risk in our community, whose parents weren't anywhere to be found, and he's now with us as he's thriving, he's going to go to college. Sorry.
That's getting very confused. I was going to go with 1 more minute.
So I know this may not be necessarily a Democratic form, but what I would say is I think a good Democrat is somebody who's concerned about helping others. And as a good Democrat, that's how I've lived my life. My parents were teachers. Everybody in my family practically was a teacher. And when you become a teacher, most people become a teacher because they enjoy working with kids and helping kids improve their lives. I went to law school, and I was fortunate to do very well. I graduated magna cum laude. And the large corporate law firms came to me and made me offers. And one of them in particular was incredible, more money than I'd ever seen in my life, doing toxic tort superfund cleanup litigation. And I considered it because it was so much money. And then one night I woke up and I said, I went to law school to help people. And this is not what I want to do with my life. And I took a lot less money doing the things I did. And again, my two main things is I'm a criminal defense attorney. where obviously I help people, help with mental health struggles in the criminal justice system. And I'm a union labor lawyer, and I get to fight for working families every day. I also, have done a lot of work with Homeless Children's Education Fund, helping those individuals who get to the criminal justice system stay connected to their services and protecting them. So I would say that what my core value is and why I want this job is to help other people. Thank you.
Thank you. Julie.
Thank you. The values that I've always lived by and that I would continue to live by if I were lucky to be enough elected are humility, compassion, and a hard worker. I was always taught humility by my family, and I live by that every day. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all make mistakes, and nobody knows every answer. And if I didn't know the answer, I would make sure I found out the answer. And no one's perfect, and we all have to remember that we're all human beings. Compassion. I've been a compassionate person my whole life. I started volunteering before I got all seniors at a nursing home, feeding them, and I've always wanted to be involved rescuing animals. I've rescued several animals for the Humane Society. I'm a compassionate person. I would continue being a compassionate person and helping people. I've been a hard worker my whole life. I had a paper route when I was 12 years old, and I never stopped working from that day. And I will continue being a very hard worker, and I'm also a good listener and make sure anyone that came before me was fully heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So now our second and your last question. It's a little long in the beginning, so here we go. Disparities in incarceration rates for Black men, overrepresentation of Black youth in the juvenile justice system, disproportionate involvement of Black families in the child welfare system are well documented around the country and right here in Allegheny County. Given this, how would you hold yourself accountable for minimizing bias in your decision making? Julie.
Thank you. As I said earlier, I've been working in the district attorney's office for 24 years, so I'm well aware that this occurs. Things that I think need to be worked on. One of the things that I've seen, which was mentioned earlier, are probation detainers. A lot of individuals cannot pay the fees and the costs that they are supposed to pay for the crimes that they were charged with committing. I think that's an issue. There's a lot of programs like mental health program, drug court, veterans court, also ARD, which stands for Alternative Resolution Disposition, which gives people a second chance and holds funds to records, but a lot of people cannot afford that program because the costs are so high. I think it's disproportionate to people that get in these situations that cannot afford it. So therefore, they cannot get a second chance. They get put on probation. They can't pay the costs. I think that's one of the issues. I also would have bias training if I were a judge in my courtroom, implicit bias training in my courtroom, because I've seen that over these last years. There's a lot of implicit bias in the court system. Unfortunately, I've witnessed it when I'm standing in the courtroom. I hear employees saying things. So those are some of the things that I would do if I were elected judge.
Thank you, Anthony.
So a lot of, we've had similar questions in the past. This was a really well phrased one, I might say. But what I would say is that, a lot of the focus on answering these questions has to do with, the sentencing before an individual judge. And an individual judge should look and make sure that their sentence is fair, regardless of race, religion, whatever it is, right? But I think the question goes a little deeper. And I think this is the question that really has to be asked by a judge in a criminal court. And we've touched upon the fact that there are more individuals of certain races and communities in the criminal justice system than others, correct? I mean, we all agree with that. And so what the judge has to ask, not only is every person before me being treated and sentenced based upon the same factors, but the judge needs to ask, would this person even be in front of me if they looked differently, if they loved differently, if they lived somewhere else? And that's a question that has to be asked, and the judge has to respond to that when they ask that question. And I think that's where we really get to the heart of bias in our communities. It's not just what the judge does, it's who's in front of the judge. And I think the judge has to be aware of that.
Thank you. Sure.
I think, just to go off of what both Julian and Anthony said, that's very true. And what I think is a really good way to inform people on the bench, and this is why we have to be really cognizant. If we were elected, elect people who have these life experiences. When I was just a prosecutor, I looked at things one way, and then when I became a defense attorney, I better understood what brings people into the system and how important it is to see the background of people and what brought them into the system. I also think it's important because I do volunteer in the community. I volunteer with at-risk youth and try to, first of all, keep them out of the system, but also appreciate their lives. I briefly mentioned my foster son. He's with me because his parents are incarcerated, off and on. And he has a different life experience and has really taught me a lot, so that now I look at everybody differently who is in the system, and I really appreciate it so much more. As my colleagues also said, when we're arraigning folks, you really, really have to look at someone's background, look at the factors that brought them into court. And I think if we do that, then we will address that issue, as well as the training that the life experience is key. Heather?
Hi, so, I mean, the question, when you're asking me, by the time somebody is in front of me, if I'm elected judge, they've already been arrested or so forth. So I am aware of implicit bias. I mean, and that is in the core of everybody. And I think that that's something that everyone needs to be cognizant of to make sure that they are not biased against anybody. I mean, when I was brought up, I was taught that you're not better than anybody. So you're not better than the janitor or so forth. But you have to look at somebody in terms of the crimes that they committed, if you're going to be looking at sentencing, and obviously if there's any way that you can put them into drug court or mental health court, veterans court, or so forth, you want to certainly do that, because you want to be able to help people, and you want to be able to get them the help they need, so that at the end of the day, they're not recommitting offenses and so forth. So, I think I'm going a little bit off track with this, but I think that look to alternative means in terms of sentencing, and beware and cognizant of any biases, and make sure that you train yourself and your staff continuously on bias.
Thank you, Mike.
So I think the first thing when it comes to bias, you have to recognize your own biases. And one thing I did when I was a prosecutor, I took multiple courses on implicit bias, and that started helping me recognize some of my own and how to combat them. But the other part I would say is, information is power. The more that you talk to people and you represent people from different backgrounds, the more you learn about what different people go through, and the differences between people get stripped away, and the humanity and the commonality come through. And you start seeing that, and you treat people as the human being they should be treated as. And I will make every effort to do that in the courtroom, listening, making sure I'm asking the right questions, and getting to the heart of why people are in front of me, what they've gone through. The other part, though, is in Allegheny County, we did a study a few years ago on racial disparity, and this is more the big picture part. And there was, a report issued about 2 years ago, and I work on a racial disparity subcommittee in the Bar Association. There are 29 recommendations, some of which apply to the court, that can be implemented. And I'm dedicated to making sure that those things that apply to the court do get implemented. I've worked before to make sure things get implemented as a prosecutor and now as a defense attorney, so I have the capacity and the knowledge to do those things.
Thank you, Hillary.
I've lived the reality of this question for the last 3 years and a couple of months serving as a magisterial district judge. I see every day in my courtroom the results of the racial disparities in our criminal justice system. And I think at its core, the way we address it is by acknowledging and saying that just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we should be. Asking questions, pushing back against the status quo, asking why and how and where and when it all happened, instead of just accepting that this is how we've always done it and this is how we're going to do it. As a newly elected judge a couple of years ago, when I started asking those questions, I got pushback. Don't make waves. Don't ask questions. Bide your time. Wait. It's not, you're too young, you're too new. But if we don't ask questions, we don't solve the problems. And so, I think we all, at the outset, must acknowledge that the bias exists and spend every moment we sit on the bench asking questions to see the humanity in people, and going back to my first statement, to acknowledge that everybody who comes in the courtroom is more than the mistake they made to bring them there.
Thank you so much to all of you. You can go ahead and continue.
I'm gonna get in trouble with this, but can we have a quick stretch break? We're gonna count to 10, stand up, stretch, and we're gonna sit back down. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Okay.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. Woo.
Oh, that's all pretty good. Thanks for it. All right, so moving on for our third group, again in alphabetical order from left to your left to right. We have Rita Bridges, Amanda Green Hawkins, Jamie Hickton, Brian Left, and Ellen Sir. Correct. The next two groups will have 5 candidates. It didn't 5. All right. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead with introductions and open remarks, starting with Peter Bridges.
Good afternoon. I'm Judge Pleas Bridges. Thank you for having me. I was recently appointed by Governor Shapiro to serve on the Court of Common Pleas, and I'm currently serving in the criminal division. I come to you all with 28 years of trial court experience. I served 2 years as a judicial law clerk for Judge Cynthia Baldwin, 16 years in the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, and 10 years in the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, where I serve as an Assistant Chief Deputy Attorney General, responsible for the day-to-day operations of the criminal division. Also, I travel to 23 counties in Western Pennsylvania client cases, and I supervise other attorneys. So I have had a lot of trial court experience. I have had homicide cases, child abuse cases, both physical and sexual abuse, and domestic violence cases. And so I am not afraid of being in the courtroom as a trial attorney. I have been in the courtroom. I know courtroom procedures. I know policies. I know evidentiary procedures. So I am, and now I'm currently serving as a judge, and so I have the experience as the judge also. So I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association, and I'm number 3 on your ballot. Thank you so much, Peter Bridges, for the Court of Common Pleas. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amanda Green Hawkins, and I am running for Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas. My journey to running for the Court of Common Pleas, I say, is centuries in the making. I'm a descendant of people who've been enslaved, as well as the daughter of people who were sharecroppers and grew up in the Jim Crow South and barely finished high school. But here I am, standing as a testament to their search and their hunt for the American dream. And as someone whose every right that I have, I know, is based upon people's fight for it. They fought, bled, and died for every right that I have. I know how important it is that we have good judges on our bench, and that's why I'm running. I certainly have the experience. I have 25 years of legal experience as a lawyer with the Steelworkers Union, and I also have the integrity, battle-tested through public service, and compassion also through my work treating people with dignity and respect and recognizing their humanity. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all this evening.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Jamie Hinton. I'm running for Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas because more than anything, I believe that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. No matter who you love, who you pray to, where you came from, or what your life circumstances are, everyone deserves to be treated that way, and everyone deserves to be fought for. I came from very modest beginnings, and I grew up as the only daughter with 5 brothers. So I jokingly say in court, I'll fight you with my words or fight you with my fists. You choose. I'm okay with either because my entire life I have fought for people who cannot fight for themselves. I started out my career as a juvenile probation officer, actually working directly with children and families in the school, in home, in communities for 7 years. I then was a judicial law clerk where I got to see behind the curtain. Then I became a juvenile prosecutor, a child abuse prosecutor, and all 3 of my kids are adopted from the child welfare system. My boys are special needs. I have been a foster parent. When I couldn't afford to provide for their needs on DA salary, I left and now I own my own law firm. I have worn every single hat in the courtroom. And that's why I'm running, so I can continue my public service and fighting for people in ways that they haven't oftentimes been fought for. I'm very happy to be endorsed by the Allegheny County Democratic Committee, Labor Council, Planned Parenthood. I'm also on Planned Parenthood's board. And I'm also happy to be endorsed by a broad coalition of organizations all across Allegheny County that is reflective of the fight I have always fought and will continue to fight for Allegheny County.
Good evening. My name is Brian Neff, and I am a candidate for the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County. I went to law school almost nearly 40 years ago, and the reason that I went to law school is because my mom, when I was age 16, decided she was going to go to law school. She gave up her career as a home economics teacher and decided to become a lawyer. And I got to watch her every night as she was going to school, studying, being with her study groups, doing the give and take that lawyers do all the time. I really got hooked on that. I've been practicing now in Allegheny County and throughout Pennsylvania and other states for 35 years now. I started my career as a clerk for a judge on the Superior Court of Pennsylvania, which is one of our 2 appellate courts, intermediate appellate courts in Pennsylvania. And while working for my judge, I helped him with opinions in all of the different divisions of the Courts of Common Pleas. And I practiced also in all of the appellate courts in Pennsylvania as well. In my private practice, I've been primarily in the civil division, but I've also worked in all of the different divisions at one time or another. I talk about one of the cases that I worked on that affected everybody in this room. 25 years ago, when I was working with our now Justice on the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, Christine Donahue, Highmark sued UPMC to stop the merger of Children's Hospital. And as a result of that case, everybody has access to Children's Hospital and continues to have access to Children's Hospital today. And that's an excellent result. I've also represented...
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Elon Zor, and I am running for judge in the Court of Common Pleas. I live in Spur Hill with my wife Lisa, and we have 3 kids who are 12, 10, and 7. The reason I'm running for judge is because I care about our community and I am devoted to public service. That is what motivates me. I have 26 years of experience as a lawyer in the District Attorney's Office, specializing in the prosecution of violent crimes, namely homicides and other acts of gun violence. Over the past 12 years, I've been the supervisor of the Violent Crimes and Fire Division at the District Attorney's Office. You know, one of the things that we're looking for in our judges is really experience. The experience to make the difficult decisions. It's the integrity to do the right thing. And it's compassion and the temperament to treat everyone who comes before you with dignity and respect. Now, our judges, they're important. The decisions they make matter. They affect not just the individual, but the community as a whole. And as we're seeing it play out on the federal level, our judges are our last safeguard in protecting our constitutional rights. And we need judges who not just bring the experience, but the compassion and the integrity and the commitment to do the right thing for all members of our community every day. And if elected, I will be their judge. And the last thing I want to share with you is that I'm honored to tell you that I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association for the position of judge. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, that's for you.
Okay.
And yeah, we're just going to take the second chair away. If you don't mind. Rachel, I hope us all stay less confused. Thank you. Okay, so let's get into this question that you've heard twice already, so you should be ready to go. judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas, and how have those values been demonstrated in your personal and professional life?
So yes, I had some time to think about this question, and the first thing that comes to mind every time is it's just honesty. It's the way I live my life. In addition to that, it's treating people with respect. Treat them the way you would expect to be treated. And the other thing I would say also is we're all human, and when we make a mistake, it's okay to admit it, and it's even better to say sorry. Now, personally, I try to implement all these values, and I'll admit that sometimes the sorry part, it might take me a little bit to come around, but ultimately, it's what I think if we all behave that way, we're better off for it. Now, professionally, how I implement that as a prosecutor, again, it's to do the right thing. Now, I want the defense attorneys that I deal with to be able to trust me, to know that I don't play hardball. I give everything I have as far as evidence, and I share it all because I have no motivation to ever convict someone who was wrongly arrested. And so, professionally, my job is to do the right thing, and that I use those tools and those characteristics that I have to really focus and do the right thing as much as I can. That means if I don't believe in my case, well, I will proceed. And sometimes the right thing to do is maybe not charge at all or withdraw charges. And just because something is criminal, it doesn't mean it has to be charged. I think that's that.
Thank you, Brian.
So I want to talk about three different principles that are my core values. First being integrity, and with that goes honesty as well. I've spent a lifetime in my career working within the courts and working with judges on different projects. Two things. One, my word is my bond. If I say I'm going to do something, it gets done. If I go to court, judges know that when they hear from me, they're getting the truth and they're getting a really accurate picture of what's going on in the case. The other thing I want to talk about is industriousness. So important that we do the hard work that we're being elected to do. It's your tax dollars that are out there, and you're entitled to a hard day's work, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week to get the job done, and you'll get that from me. The third thing I want to talk about and live my life by is a principle of Judaism called Tikkun Olam, which means repair the world. And I've spent my career doing that in different ways. So for instance, I chaired what's called our Attorneys Against Hunger campaign in the Bar Association, raising millions of dollars on behalf of hunger relief in Allegheny County. I've also worked with judges and different folks in the legal system to improve our process. I've been appointed by our Pennsylvania Supreme Court to the disciplinary court, and I provided access to justice by my work on the IL court dealing with legal aid for people who can't afford it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Three core values that I have that I think are critically important are empathy, compassion, and integrity. Judges have supreme power over each and every one of us. And I firmly believe, and it's part of why integrity matters to me, with power comes responsibility. And when you hold that kind of power over individuals, you are supposed to dispense justice. Get the blindfold in theory, right? Except that we can't be blindfolded to the reality of the system and how the system induces trauma just by being involved in it. And so that's about empathy and that's about compassion. My entire life I have fought for people who could not fight for themselves. Even in my private practice, I devote about 50% of my practice to representing people who are low income and marginalized, because I myself am a member of a marginalized community. My wife and I have experienced discrimination in ways that I never anticipated before I even allowed myself to admit to myself that I was a member of the queer community. And so as a judge, with that supreme power that you have comes the responsibility to understand the people who are coming before you have an entire lived experience which you might not necessarily appreciate without hearing about it, but you have an obligation to do justice, to ask questions, and to be empathetic to the people that you are there to serve. Thank you. Amanda.
Thank you. The core principle that I would bring with me is foundational to everything that I do, and that is treating people with dignity and respect. And that means simply recognizing people's humanity and treating them like they matter, like they're important. And I happen to be able to do this every day in my work as a lawyer with the Steelworkers Union. I'm able to do work that's consistent with my core beliefs and principles at work as well as outside of work. And in my work, sometimes I am working with people who may be trans, and they're fighting for access to a bathroom. Maybe I'm fighting for retiree benefits and health care for people who were promised those things. Maybe I'm fighting for fair wages and overtime for those who are trying to organize or who recently organized and are really trying to understand their power and what they can challenge their employers on. And making sure that people are treated with dignity and respect and recognizing their humanity. It is also watching them understand that they have the right to demand things, ask for things that they're entitled to from their employer, whether it be a Fortune 500 company or whether it be a local employer. And for people to understand their power, to experience that power, is transitional.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm originally from Clarksville, Tennessee, and my mother and father raised 7 children. And one thing that they taught us to make sure that we did was be respectful to other people. And we've heard respect a lot on the dais here today. And really that is the one thing that I have always been towards the people that I live with, towards the people that I work with throughout the 28 years that I have been a lawyer, is to show everyone respect. Also, another core value that I have is to, I don't give my word out lightly. So I make sure whatever I say I'm going to do, I do it. I honor my word. I do what I say I'm going to do. And I think that if you speak with anyone that has ever worked with me, they will confirm that I do and say I do what I say I'm going to do, and I don't take it lightly. The last thing I would say is integrity. We've heard integrity quite a bit, and a lot of my colleagues have heard me say integrity for me is doing the right thing when no one knows you've even done it. And that is the compass that guides my everyday ethical decision, integrity.
Thank you. Next question, and we will start with disparities in incarceration rates for Black men, overrepresentation of Black youth in the juvenile justice system, disproportionate involvement of Black families in the child welfare system are well documented around the country, and especially right here in Allegheny County. Given this, how do you see your role as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas in addressing and actively reducing these racial disparities within the justice system?
The one thing that I do believe that we have to do, and I think it has been said multiple times today, is training. I think we have to recognize our own biases, the implicit bias, the explicit bias, and if you don't actually have training in that area, you may not even recognize that you have it. So what I would like to do is to have my staff trained in implicit and explicit biases. I think that is very important, and I think it's also important that you don't just have one training. You have to come back and reassess, what it is that you were taught, the issues that have come before you, and how you address those issues. Another important thing that I also try to do as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas, I do have a lot of ability to issue sentences that are, of course, within the framework of the guidelines, but if I have a situation where a young person, they need to have restorative kinds of justice, I look for ways to give them alternatives other than jail. There are many alternatives that we can utilize in the criminal justice system, and to the extent I can, I do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, for one thing, I recognize that I am that Black family. I could be that Black family. I recognize that I have Black children who can also be a part of that system. I don't see myself as any different from the people who are appearing in the system. And as a judge, as a lawyer, as a former government employee, there is an oath that is taken every time you are new to the job. And one of those, that oath includes defending, protecting, serving the Constitution of the Commonwealth, the be treated similarly. And so I think it is more than just, asking the questions. I think it's also trying to make sure that you gather, let's do something, let's gather the stakeholders and let's talk about solutions to these problems. Because by the time somebody's gotten to court, the reason for them being there has happened a long time before. So let's talk about the initial contact which caused them to get into the system and to then be in front of me or whoever the judge is in the first place. And I said, I don't have all the answers, but what I'm willing to do is to find all of the resources and bring them to the table that is necessary to craft a solution that is community-oriented and good for the community, including those who are involved in the system.
Thank you, Jane. It's critically important that we elect people who have an actual lived experience in facing this very issue. And the reason I start with that is because when I was very young, I came from a lower middle class white community. And when I was a juvenile probation officer at 22 years old, I had no idea what I did not know. And when I became a juvenile prosecutor, I had no idea what I did not know. When I became a child abuse prosecutor, I had no idea what I did not know. And when I became a defense attorney, my eyes opened up to an entire different world that I did not know. These positions are critically important. Who we choose to put as the decider of our children, our brothers, our sisters, our parents' fates, right? And when it comes to explicit and implicit bias, people who have not either lived that experience or who have not worked directly with the people who have that experience cannot have a fundamental appreciation of what the system actually does to marginalize people. I represent parents and children in the child welfare system every day that are impacted by this. I represent juvenile delinquents in that system every day who are impacted by this. And I am committed to recognizing my own and addressing and acknowledging my own implicit bias, continuing learning and doing better for the people that I serve. And every judge should be committed to doing that for everyone in the county. Thank you. Brian.
Clearly, we all have our biases, and we all have to figure out how to deal with them in our practice and on the bench. I've spent a great deal of my career learning about biases and implementing programs to deal with biases. I serve on what's called the Bar Association's Gender Bias Subcommittee, and I've served with some of my greatest mentors in the profession of law, Judge Livingstone Johnson, Judge Eugene Strasberger, learning about how to fight gender bias in the profession. And we take confidential complaints from individuals that have suffered gender bias in the profession, and we talk to them about their complaints, and with their consent, we go to those offending sources, and we tell them they're wrong, and we tell them how they're going to fix the problem. It's so important. We've done that with judges and practitioners, not just in Allegheny County, but in other counties where our attorneys have been involved. I think if you go to the 14th Ward Independent Democratic Club's website and look us up, there's an article under me where I wrote about implicit biases. And I published that to all of our Bar Association members. And I've taken classes on implicit bias, and I've implemented programs as president of the Bar Association where judges should have implicit bias training, and we've implemented that in CLAs across the board at the Allegheny County Bar Association. But there's more we can do, and really what it takes is speaking truth to power and making sure that we change those institutions that are engendering bias. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with respect to what I can do reflected as a judge to address the racial disparity that exists at every single decision point in the criminal justice system, from arrest to pretrial detention to sentencing to probation violations, what you can do as a judge, and with respect to that, and I'll start with pretrial detention, well, that's in my control as a judge. And I make a decision as a judge, what bond someone should get, if they should be held in jail out of bond, and that decision is not going to be made with respect to anyone's color. It will be based on the facts of the case, based on the defendant's history. That's what I can do as a judge. Furthermore, I control plea agreements as a judge. So I have a case in which a white defendant is offered this deal and a black defendant is offered a different deal, yet they're situated otherwise. As a judge, I can question that plea agreement, I can question the prosecutor offering that deal, and ultimately, as a judge, I can reject that plea if I find that it's offered based on something other than the facts of the case. And similarly, sentencing. That is something a judge can completely control in their court. And I can ensure, as a judge, that when I sentence people, it's not based on color or skin, it's based on the facts and their lived experiences and their criminal history. That's what you can do as a judge to address racial disparity.
Thank you both so much. And for our next and final group, we have Alyssa Callan, Amy Matthew, Ben Miller, Jackie Mara, and Dennis Perry. And you can see that but introductions and opening remarks, starting with Alyssa Callan. Hi everybody, good evening. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, and thank you so much for gathering for this opportunity for all of us to introduce ourselves to you. My name is Judge Alyssa Callan. I was appointed to the bench by Governor Shapiro, sponsored by Senator Jay Costa and Senator Lindsey Williams, and assigned to the Family Division as a judge. I am now running to get elected for a full 10-year term on the Court of Common Pleas, and I wish to remain in the Family Division. I came to law through social work. I have my master's degree in social work and was a school social worker in the Philadelphia Public Schools before going to law school. I was fortunate to obtain a public interest fellowship and have dedicated my career to improving the court system on behalf of kids and families ever since I graduated from law school. I saw a lot of disparities in the ways that my families were being treated when they went to family court as a social worker, and that is what I have actively fought against. Prior to being appointed to the bench, I was with the county law department, have spent time at Kids Voice representing kids in foster care, and I'm a proud adjunct faculty member at the University of Pittsburgh School of Social Work, where I teach children and families at risk, child and family advocacy, and advocacy and lobbying for nonprofit organizations. I am highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association, and I would certainly appreciate your vote on May 20th. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Amy Matthew. I'm one of the candidates for the Court of Common Pleas of Allegheny County. I married my wife, Katie, on November 2nd, 2024. So we were still on our honeymoon when Trump was elected to the presidency. And I woke up the very next morning and decided to run for this office because I know exactly what's at stake right now. I woke up that next morning not knowing how long my brand new marriage would be legitimate. And I didn't ever want to feel that way again. And I know families across Allegheny County woke up with similar fears for their own families, their own marriages, their own children under this presidency. So after I graduated law school, I clerked for the Honorable Christine Ward in the Allegheny County Civil Division. While I was there, we helped start and run the name change court where trans individuals in Allegheny County can safely obtain a name change without fear of retaliation in work or housing. After that, and since then, I've been a civil rights attorney here in Allegheny County. Half of my practice is focused on workplace discrimination claims. So I represent people after they've been discriminated at work based on their race, age, sex, religion, or disability. The other half of my work, I represent survivors of sexual abuse. And I hold the institutions responsible who have allowed the sexual abuse of children to happen or covered it up for decades. And so I want to bring that experience to the bench. I think we need people who understand what is at stake right now for marginalized communities in Allegheny County. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for making it this far in the night. And I want to thank Roda Shalom for having us here and every organization that's been part of this. I am Dan Miller. I am also one of the candidates. I am currently a state representative based in the South Hills. Some of you may know me. I do a lot of disability and mental health work. I was a Democratic whip last term. I've been elected there since 2013. I'm the first person in my family born in this country, so public service has been a big thing for us, for me to kind of take on as a responsibility. I enlisted when I was 19. I joined AmeriCorps, spent a year doing community service projects across the country. I'm a retired volunteer firefighter from my hometown in Mount Lebanon. And like I said, I try to be active in the state legislature doing as much disability, mental health, and criminal justice reform as I can do. I am a former steel worker. That was my second union. I was a teacher back in the day. I taught 9th, 10th, and 12th grade history. My law practice has always been three things: poor people, disability, and mental health. That's where I've been. I'm a public defender is the first job out of law school. I enjoy that work, and it's been a passion of mine. It's where I believe equality is found. It's the focal point to which I try to bring justice to. I'm highly recommended by the Bar Association. Would appreciate one of your votes on this.
Hi, I'm Jackie O'Bara. I've been a practicing attorney in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania for 20 years. I went to undergraduate school and obtained my bachelor's degree in chemistry. So when I went to law school, I intended to be a patent attorney. But I recognized after my first year of law school that when I was doing an internship with Judge Jeffrey Manning, that I liked the law as it applied to people and recognized the profound impact that the court system has on the ordinary lives of citizens. So while I did not ultimately end up practicing in the criminal division, I practiced in family division. I've been a litigator, a judicial law clerk, and a divorce hearing officer. For the last 6 years, though, my work as a divorce hearing officer has been the most impactful of my life. I sit there and I assist the parties with resolution of their economic claims incident to divorce, alimony, complex support, enforcement of marriage settlement agreements. And this work has taught me that one of the most important things is listening and empathy. It's really important for the person deciding the case to have experience and understanding of the law, but also to listen to the people that come before them. I'm highly recommended by the Allegheny County Bar Association. I've been endorsed by the building trades. Thank you so much for having us here in this beautiful facility, and I appreciate your patience. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Berry, and I am very pleased that I am uniquely positioned to meet a current and critical need of the court right now. Well, what is that critical need? 1/3 of all cases in the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas are civil division cases. 1/3. And in this cycle, 5 out of the 8 judges that we were replacing were civil division judges. 5 out of the 8. We are this group that I'm with is very talented, but you've seen their family lawyers, criminal attorneys, magistrate judges, all very important and critical to the system. The critical need is civil litigation judges. I'm uniquely positioned, I feel humbly, to meet that need. I have 30 years of constant representation of clients in the civil division. Every type of case with every type of client, from large corporations down to individuals. With this experience, I feel that I am uniquely qualified to fill that need. If I dare say, the very one who could fill that need of the five judges that we're trying to replace in the civil division. I have representation from a well-known national litigation law firm. I have that experience in my 30 years. I went to the University of Notre Dame for undergrad at Duquesne Law School. Thank you.
But you're going to keep the mic, so fine. All right. Last group, your challenge is to keep us all engaged and give us wonderful answers. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Dennis, what core personal values will guide your work as a judge on the Allegheny County Court of Common Pleas? And how have those values been demonstrated in your personal and professional life?
I was fortunate enough, my dad was a past president of the Allegheny County Bar Association. Unfortunately, he passed away when I was young. I was 11 years old. I was the youngest of 6. So from 11 on, I was raised by a single mom. And I saw my mom suffer and deal with that like we all were. But unfortunately, just 5 years later, my next oldest brother, a year and a half older than me, we lost him to a rare genetic disease. So all my other brothers and my sister were off doing their thing at school, and working, and it was just my mom and I in the house. So I saw her put on a strong face when she left the house, but I saw her suffering as we all were. So I realized that even though people have a strong face and put on a strong appearance, maybe they're not having a good day.
just how when people in the courtroom, they might not be having a good day. So I think that the empathy that I have learned and felt through those experiences, which how can they not form you, will play an important part that I'll take to the court. I used it in my everyday life as a lawyer, from learning from lawyers that I work with. I would never act like that, or that's a great way, or even to when I was appearing when I was in law school representing Children Youth Services with the example of Justice Max Baer, who showed great example of empathy, and that is what I will emulate when I'm on the court, on the bench, if I'm grateful enough to be elected.
Thank you, Jackie Laird.
So it's kind of hard to put this in a few words, but I was raised to be a hard worker and to be confident, decisive, and respectful of everyone around me. When I was young, my dad owned his own business, and so whenever we would have a snow day, he would wake me up and I'd have to go and clean his office and file. I never really got the snow days of high school or anything like that. And so I carried that with me to what I do now. When I hear cases, we allot 3 hours for conciliations. When they don't resolve, I bring them in over my lunch hour. Sometimes after work, I stay late because it's always better for the parties to reach an amicable resolution. And if I can do that with a little bit of extra work and assistance, it's always better for the parties. So I bring with me hard work, empathy, which I've developed over the last 6 years, listening to the people coming before me as a hearing officer. But I think one of the other things that you need to have in a judge is someone who's decisive, right? Someone who's not afraid to make that hard decision. And that's something I've done for the last 6 years. It's very difficult to tell a family how much money they have between them and how it's going to be divided, what assets they get to retain and things that they don't get to keep. And I've done that for the last 6 years. So I guess to sum it up, I'm hardworking, respectful, and decisive. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Miller.
Thanks. To me, it's all public service. So, you know, I think I mentioned with it, I was the first one born in this country for both sides of my family. It was a major deal for my family, like yours, I'm sure, to come here. My mom came over on a boat with her grandmother, and my family talked about how important it was that we were here, that we had an opportunity to be here, and that we had a responsibility to give back. To me, being a judge is just the next step in a way to provide that type of public service that makes a difference in people's lives. I've been a legislator for the past 11 plus years. I've really enjoyed that opportunity of being a Democratic whip leader, working with all our local reps that are out here getting their help and support and a variety of things. A lot of that's up here. We have the luxury at times as legislators to debating big things. Those are nice, those are important things. Things that you elect us to go do. We do that. By the same token on the bench, you have a chance, person by person, case by case, family by family, to make a difference that hopefully breaks a wheel or provides greater opportunity while measuring accountability for the process. I look forward to that.
Thank you. Amy Matthew.
Thank you. I think that for me, it's the amount of empathy, compassion, and trustworthiness that I need to have to earn the trust of the survivors that I represent in the courtroom every day. I think I'm the only candidate who represents survivors of sexual abuse in civil claims. And what that means is that these victims have already gone through the criminal process. And a lot of times they've been told the police or the DA that they're not going to prosecute their claims, that they don't believe them. And it is my job to rebuild that trust in the justice system. Because I only represent them. I don't represent the state. I don't represent the defendant. I represent the survivor in the courtroom for the first time in their experience. And I have to make sure that they are heard and understood and that their experience is validated regardless of the outcome in a courtroom. Because I can't control that. What I can control is how I treat people and how they feel leaving my day in court with them or my office. And so to me, it's the compassion, empathy, and trustworthiness that I earn with my clients every single day, representing them.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
So my 3 core values that have guided my work throughout my life has been identifying and solving problems, those issues. So in college, I was learning about systemic disparities in our communities around redlining and the fact that some neighborhoods didn't have access to mortgages, home ownership was low, and as a result, there were disparities in school funding and school resources. And so I became president of our campus chapter of Habitat for Humanity and spent every weekend rousing my fellow college students to get in a van and go build all Saturday long, and sometimes stay overnight, on the floor of a church in Philadelphia or Harrisburg, and stay steadfastly committed to that hard work of getting that job done. And then when I was at Kids Voice as a foster care attorney, I saw that our kids were not being treated well in their school districts, their behavioral health settings. So we decided to develop a unit where we were representing kids not only in court, but also in their school districts for school disciplinary hearings, special education services, and to make sure that they were being treated fairly in their behavioral health settings and not getting overprescribed psychotropic medications just because they were in foster care. When I was with the statewide adoption and permanency network, I saw that many of our judges, attorneys, practitioners in the field didn't understand the needs of educational needs of kids in care. So developing training for that.
Okay, it's your mic. It's your mic. It just kept you. Okay, this question: disparities in incarceration rates for Black men, overrepresentation of Black youth in the juvenile justice system, disproportionate involvement of Black families in the child welfare system are well documented around the country, and right here, especially in Allegheny County. How would you hold yourself accountable for minimizing bias in decision-making given those issues?
Yeah, so I like that the question is phrased as well documented, because this is well documented facts, truth, okay? So we need to start there. And I think it's just so important that as you're evaluating candidates for any elected office, not just as judges, you're really looking at the experiences and how people have dedicated themselves in their work. So when we look at things like implicit bias, and we're looking at evaluating ourselves and saying, what stereotypes, what have we been influenced by in our thinking? And how have people actively tried to learn beyond their families, beyond their own communities, and how have they put them outside of their own communities to learn about what's going on in other neighborhoods and such. And so many of us have experiences in different jobs, different careers, different cities, different communities, and that impacts our perspective that we bring to the bench. In addition, we're all in leadership roles in a system, and we are the people to level the playing field and change the system, and we need to be held accountable to that. So that is our role as system players, to take an active steps in actually changing how these cases are heard, how people's voices are heard, and making sure that everyone walking into our courtrooms has the resources to be able to put their case on fairly and fully, whether it's through a high-paid attorney or whether it's through community legal services and those connections.
Thank you. Amy?
Thanks. I think this problem is a symptom. It is a side effect of a larger societal problem. It's not just in the courts. Marginalized communities, including Black and brown communities, including my own LGBTQ community, have worse outcomes on a society-wide basis in a lot of different aspects. Education, health outcomes, lower pay inequality. So it's a symptom of a larger problem. Where the courts can be better at it, though, is recognizing the problem first and having 43 judges that recognize the problem. Not one, not 8, all 43. The other thing is that we need to understand and recognize as judges that the reason that crimes are committed are usually not criminal intent. It's usually lack of resources. And so finding the people in the courtroom the resources they need is how we fix it, not incarcerating young Black and brown people. It's getting to the source of the problem, correcting that problem as a society, and having judges who understand that when they walk into the courtroom. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, like as a public defender, again, like Laura mentioned, disproportionately we know who our clients were. As a solicitor, as a county solicitor, disproportionately we had LGBTQ kids. When we are working in special education, obviously we're doing IEPs, 504 plans. You take those three categories, mix them all together, and you are fueling what is the majority of cases in one way or the other through criminal and family court. That's what I try to help with. In the legislature I wrote, I think a 51-8 bill, if I recall, in relation to the Juvenile Justice Act. That came from a report that said the very things that we're talking about. Something like black boys were 7% of the population, but 57% of those that tried as adults. That black girls were 3 times as likely to be arrested in school. All the things go right through that line. I think as we are judges, we have to get to the point of understanding the impact of the system. And especially on post-conviction, we all have to address the cases that come before us. After a conviction, especially in juvenile, there's a chance, with the right perspective and enough understanding, to really craft something that can make a difference. Stop involvement, provide resources, and get underneath the problem so that people don't come back. But to pull out or to not acknowledge all those issues is a big loss.
Thank you. Jackie?
Okay, so the question is, how would I, as a judge, address my own implicit bias in my decision making? And I can tell you what I do as a hearing officer. I have people come in front of me, and I understand that the issue with prosecution of Black and brown communities is not in the family division and divorce court, right? It's a civil matter. But I have people come in front of me that are from all different backgrounds, different cultural issues, right? And so for me, sometimes the things that are important to the people that are there are not something that I'm familiar with. The issues that arose in their marriage are not something that I'm cognizant of. So recognizing my own lack of understanding and being culturally aware of the people that come in front of me is important. And that's what I would do regardless of which division I sit in. As a law clerk to Judge Tom Flaherty, he has been in criminal division for about 15 years. And I know one of the things that I think is important is pretrial diversionary programs to get people help, mental health treatment, substance abuse treatment, prior to them coming into the courtroom for their disposition. So those are two things that I think I would like to carry with me if I'm thankfully, hopefully, elected to the bench. Thank you.
Thank you. Dennis?
Thank you. That's exactly what the question was. How would I hold myself accountable to that issue? You remember moments. So there's a moment that I remember when I was young and my dad was still living, and he showed me the Statue of Justice. And he explained to me how the Statue of Justice is blindfolded. And that's blindfolded because you can't have biases in the courtroom. If biases in the courtroom destroys fairness. So one simple thing I would do is have a statue of Lady Justice in my courtroom if I have the honor of being elected. Just to have that simple reminder to me that you have to leave any biases outside of that room. I would also understand that I don't know all the answers. I would have training for the entire court. Because the judge isn't just the judge. The judge makes up the judge is the chambers too. It's tip staff, it's law clerks, it's administrative assistants. Everyone who would have time with litigants would go through those training. That training just wouldn't be one training, it would be continued training. I would try to make sure that all the specialty courts are used. And the other thing I would do is I would look beyond Allegheny County to see what other counties are doing, not just in Pennsylvania, but other states, to see what has been successful in attacking the issue of bias. That's what I would do if I'm the honor of being elected. And thank you for everybody's time. Hanging in there.
All right, thank you so much.
Our audience, you made it to the end. Congratulations. Give yourself a hearty round of applause. And now, Mr. Candace, a hearty round of applause. And we have a couple of announcements and then we'll dismiss you. We want to remind you, the last day to apply for a mail-in ballot, which you must do by 5 p.m. is May 13th. Election day is May 20th. And voting is if you're going to vote in person, polls open at 7 a.m. and close at 8 p.m. If you are voting by mail, that ballot must be received by 8 p.m. If you need to save the number in your phone, if you have any issues with voting, the Allegheny County Elections Division, the League of Women Voters, we, the Voter Empowerment Education and Richmond Movement, we all have open lines. VPAC is going around to the polls, and don't forget to go to votepa.gov and to watch the YouTube video. Is that what Mr. Tim is going to tell me? Yes, you can watch this recording on youtube.com/ATRICO. We have been, and thank our timekeepers, y'all. We've been Miranda and Rachel. Have a wonderful night.
8:32.
Woo!